Mark Carter, 28, a beachcomber with a knack for uncovering treasures, stumbled upon a shiny gold object half buried in the sand. Excitement filled him as he hurried to the local jeweler, dreaming of a potential windfall. But as the jeweler examined the gold find, Mark's anticipation shifted to sheer astonishment. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Mark waited in suspense as the jeweler, Mr. Wilson, inspected his newest find. "And? What is it?" he asked, too excited to wait another minute, but Mr. Wilson simply shushed him in response and threw him a sharp glance. "Oh, sorry," Mark whispered, and he backed away from the counter, giving the jeweler some space. However, he had no idea what he was getting himself into. Mark decided to try to distract himself from the waiting. He was too excited, and he walked around the jewelry shop, checking out all the beautiful displays. After some more moments of silence, Mr. Wilson finally let out a deep sigh and put away his looking glass. Mark immediately approached him and stood next to the counter with his eyes wide in excitement. "Well, have you figured it out?" he asked, still blissfully unaware of what would happen. Mr. Wilson just stared at the object for a while without saying a single word, and then he finally looked at Mark. "I have to be honest with you. I have never seen something like this in my life. Not with my own eyes, at least. I have to discuss this with a colleague, if you don't mind." Mark's eyes widened, and he nodded. "Of course, please do get in touch with me when you find any information," he said, reaching for the coin, wanting to take it home with him for the time being. But Mr. Wilson stopped him. Before Mark could even take the coin, Mr. Wilson had already snatched it from the counter and held it behind his back. "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't just let you take this with you. I need to keep it here so that my colleague can have a look at it when he arrives," he said. Mark frowned. "It's still mine. I found it. Hand it over." But Mr. Wilson refused to give it back. Mark slammed his fist on the counter. "Give it back, now!" Mr. Wilson sighed and said, "All right, here's the plan. I'll take it into my office, snap some pictures for my colleague, and then you can take it home if you don't trust me to keep it safe." Mark hesitated, guilt momentarily replacing his anger. "Fine. I'm in no hurry," he said, softening his tone. Mr. Wilson nodded and disappeared into the back office. Mark waited, listening as Mr. Wilson spoke on the phone. But suddenly, the shop fell silent, too silent. "Mr. Wilson, everything okay back there?" Mark called, but there was no response. Worry nudged at him. Something didn't feel right. Summoning his courage, he slipped behind the counter and pushed open the door to the office. It was empty. Mr. Wilson had vanished, along with the gold object. Standing in the eerily quiet office, confusion gave way to anger. Mr. Wilson's disappearance seemed deliberate, and Mark felt betrayed. He wasted no time heading to the local police station, determined to report the bizarre incident. At the station, his story was met with skepticism. Officers appeared unconvinced, bogged down by procedures that seemed to diminish his hope for help. Despite the red tape, Mark's persistence caught the attention of a detective intrigued by the unusual nature of the case. The detective agreed to investigate, pairing his expertise with Mark's determination. Together, they pieced together every scrap of information they could find. As they delved deeper, patterns in Mr. Wilson's behavior before his disappearance began to emerge. Shopkeepers and customers alike described a change in his demeanor. The anecdotes about Mr. Wilson's recent conduct painted a picture of a man increasingly troubled by something unseen. Just when their leads seemed to be reaching a dead end, an unexpected development reignited their hope. Mark returned to Mr. Wilson's jewelry shop. A chilling sight greeted him. The once orderly shop was now in complete disarray, the aftermath of a break-in. Glass cases were shattered, drawers flung open, and contents strewn about. The extent of the ransacking was thorough, suggesting a frantic search for something valuable. It was clear that someone else was desperately searching for something, possibly the same gold object. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Mark pulled out his phone and dialed the detective. He reported the break-in, his voice steady but filled with urgency. Upon the detective's arrival, they conducted a thorough search of the shop. To their surprise, they uncovered a hidden compartment behind a loose wall panel. Inside, they found an array of personal effects and cryptic notes that belonged to Mr. Wilson. Among the notes was a series of numbers and letters that seemed indecipherable at first glance. Could this be a code or clue related to the gold object? The discovery added a new dimension to their investigation. Intrigued by the cryptic notes, Mark and the detective scrutinized the series of numbers and letters. The sequence seemed random, but they suspected it was a coded message, possibly linked to the gold object. They analyzed each character, pondering its significance and began to consider various methods of decryption. The investigation led Mark and the detective to delve into Mr. Wilson's past. They uncovered his long-standing reputation in the antiquities community, known for dealing with rare and sometimes controversial items. This raised further questions about the gold object's significance and its possible origins. Hoping for clarity, they contacted one of Mr. Wilson's old friends, another antiques dealer. The friend recounted memories of Mr. Wilson and revealed that he had been preoccupied with a recent discovery that greatly troubled him. This conversation offered valuable insight into Mr. Wilson's state of mind before his disappearance and hinted at the object's importance and the dangers it might pose. As their investigation deepened, Mark and the detective stumbled upon alarming information about a criminal gang infamous for trafficking rare and ancient artifacts. The gang, active in the underground market, was linked to the break-in at Mr. Wilson's shop, raising suspicions about their interest in the gold object. To pursue new leads, the duo revisited the beach where Mark had originally found the object, hoping to uncover anything that might have been overlooked. While searching, they unexpectedly encountered members of the gang. The confrontation was tense, with both sides wary and on edge. In the heat of the standoff, one gang member slipped, mentioning a code, an exact match to a sequence found in Mr. Wilson's notes. This critical piece of information confirmed the gang's involvement and suggested that the code held the key to unraveling the gold object's mystery. Mark and the detective exchanged glances, realizing the significance of this slip-up. The situation on the beach quickly became volatile, but Mark and the detective managed to extricate themselves from the standoff, narrowly escaping a dangerous escalation. Following the tense beach encounter, Mark and the detective, armed with new determination, tracked down a lead to Mr. Wilson's hideout. They found him in a dilapidated building, a shadow of his former self, visibly shaken and fearing for his life. It was clear that the events surrounding the gold object had plunged him into a world of danger and intrigue he was ill-prepared to handle. In the dim light of the hideout, Mr. Wilson, with a mix of relief and apprehension, finally confessed. The gold object, he revealed, was part of a larger artifact, one with significant historical value and shrouded in mystery. His voice trembled as he recounted how his discovery had unwittingly entangled him in a dangerous game with high stakes, far beyond the quiet life of a jeweler. Mr. Wilson explained that the cryptic code inscribed on the gold object was not just a random sequence of characters, it was a map. This map, he believed, pointed to the locations of the remaining pieces of the larger artifact. His eyes held a mix of fear and excitement as he divulged this information, revealing a puzzle that was both historical and perilously real. Knowing that the criminal gang was closing in, desperate to claim the artifact for themselves, Mark, the detective, and Mr. Wilson realized they were in a race against time. Using the deciphered code, they set out to locate the remaining pieces of the artifact. Working swiftly and covertly, the trio managed to locate and secure the remaining pieces of the artifact. Mark, the detective, and Mr. Wilson formed an efficient team, each bringing their own strengths to the task. They had not only solved an intricate mystery, but had also protected a significant part of cultural heritage from falling into the wrong hands. With the recovered artifacts in hand, the trio made their way to the authorities. In a meeting marked by revelations and explanations, they presented the artifacts and recounted their journey. The authorities were astounded by the discovery and the story behind it. Mr. Wilson's name was cleared as he was recognized not as a thief, but as a keeper of secrets who had stumbled upon a discovery too large for him to handle alone. Mark's return to his town was met with admiration and accolades. News of his brave adventure had spread, painting him as a local hero. The experience had a profound impact on Mark, igniting a desire to explore new horizons beyond his beachcombing life. He began considering new paths and opportunities, inspired by the adventure and the skills he had honed during the investigation. The thrill of solving the mystery had opened his eyes to possibilities he had never contemplated before, setting him on the course for new beginnings. Through their shared ordeal, a strong bond had formed between Mark and the detective. Their partnership, born out of necessity, had grown into mutual respect and camaraderie. As they parted ways, there was a hint of future collaborations, a sense that this adventure had been just the beginning of a lasting alliance. The town organized a celebration in honor of the mystery's resolution and Mark's remarkable bravery. Community members gathered, their faces bright with pride and admiration. Speeches were made lauding Mark's courage, and toasts were raised in his honor.